Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another Indie Game Friday, the series where I take a look at independent role-playing games. This week, let's take a look at Zavix Tower. Developed by Batholith Entertainment and published by Indie Voyage, it was in early access on Steam and finally came out of early access on July 21st, 2016. It is currently available on Steam for $14.99 US. This game is a mixed bag. Basically a dungeon crawler that was initially set up to be one of those time-devouring freemium-style games, and then switched to a standard purchase sometime around coming out of early access. I'll start this review right off by saying that there were apparently some issues with the developer and how they treated their community. However, we'll touch more on those at the end and focus on the game itself. Zavix Tower is a first-person, turn-based, party-based, procedurally generated dungeon crawl. It bills itself as having an upgradable and persistent town, among other things, but I fear that's only very vaguely the case. Although it's out of early access, more than a few things are listed as coming soon in the game. As far as story goes, it's very nearly irrelevant. The tower is the dungeon, and any story elements are necessarily simply to get you into the dungeon and adventuring. That having been said, as you explore the dungeon, you'll come across various lore books that expand upon the lore of the main story. Character creation is relatively straightforward. Your initial party is 4 people, from 4 classes. You can change gender, select portraits, rename them, and select from the 4 basic classes common to most RPGs: warrior, rogue, mage, and priest. Additional classes are unlockable as you explore the dungeon. There's nothing that says they have to be different from one another either, so you could make 4 warriors for all the game cares. In town, there are several places that you can visit. The Blacksmith sells a random assortment of items, and can purchase them when you find them in the dungeon. The Enchanter's Shop can adjust items, re-enchanting or reforging them for a fee. The Academy allows you to train members of your party in new abilities. The Inn allows you to manage your party's inventory and such from the town screen, while the Tavern allows you to recruit mercenaries to fill party slots. The Cart allows you to upgrade the abilities of certain buildings, while the Church enables you to resurrect characters in the event of a total party wipe, albeit without their accumulated gear. Finally, there is Zavix Tower itself, which is the dungeon. The first thing you get when you enter the town is the party formation screen. You can select heroes from your roster to fill the 6 basic positions. Yes, 6. Because you can later recruit mercenaries beyond your starting 4 and fill up those 6 slots with them. I do like how the formation tells you what slots are more likely to be hit than others, enabling you to shift your formation to take advantage of your character's varying stats, gear, and levels. You can save a particular formation, which may be useful if you end up with a lot of heroes, as well as select which dungeon level to enter on if you've traveled far enough into the tower. Once you enter the tower, the floor is randomly generated, and you are given certain quests based on how far in the tower you've progressed. The tower itself is represented in a 3D, first-person perspective similar to Dungeon Master or Eye of the Beholder, but the amount of interactable objects is severely limited. In the lower left-hand corner, you'll see the character roster and formation. In the upper right, the mini-map. Below, there's a number of menus, enabling you to check your character sheets, your inventory, your current logbook, with the quests and the lore within it, as well as a leaderboard. The character sheets are each arrayed with tabs to select a particular character on the left, and tabs to select which page of the character sheet you're looking at along the top. The initial sheet has numerical stats as well as inventory slots. You can select which stats you're looking at with a drop-down menu. The next tab shows your character's attributes, and allows you to modify them during a level up or respec them if you decide you want to rebuild your character. Finally, there's a Talent tab, which shows the various abilities and talents your character can unlock as they level up. These too can be respec'd if you wish to modify your character later. Dungeon exploration is pretty easy. WASD to move, space to open doors, mouse click to open chests. Each time you enter a room, if there's an encounter, you'll immediately enter a fight. If there's a trap, you'll immediately trigger it. Combat itself is also pretty simple. There's spaces that determine which of your character's attacks can reach which opponents, with the opponent's spacing somewhat similar to that of the parties, although the monster groups can be larger. Monsters can be randomly generated, and you get a mixed bag each time you enter, with more monsters coming into the rotation the further you get into the dungeon. Each character gets a turn, listed in the turn order on the upper right, and can either use one of their special abilities or wait. You can use hotkeys to trigger each move, and then the mouse click to target it, making for a very quick progression through certain battles once you've got the timing down. After each battle, as well as when you open a chest or complete a level or quest, you'll be provided with some loot. Loot generally follows a progression seen in many other MMO-influenced games, with gray being basic loot, green being mildly magical, blue being rare, and then epics, and so forth. The rarity will tend to dictate which abilities a particular piece of gear has at a certain level limit, as well as when you can equip it. In this way, you can pretty quickly customize your character's gear. As experience accumulates, you'll level up a particular character, which gives you a few attribute points to distribute, as well as one talent point. Upon finding the stairs on each level, you'll be able to either continue on to the next one, or head back to town. You have to find the stairs to exit the dungeon at all, actually. The dungeon itself is randomly generated, with each square being selected from a tile, either a pretty generic 3x3 tile room, a connecting cross corridor, etc. This means that the layout is perhaps more limited than I would like, although each room has appropriate set dressing, albeit mostly non-interactable objects. Gameplay is pretty grindy, I'll admit, and while I personally don't mind a good dungeon crawler loot grind once in a while, if you're coming to this looking for some complex stories or other interactions, you're probably better off looking somewhere else. As far as the game itself goes, I had no problems running it, but I understand that some people had some stability issues in the past. Graphically, it's very reminiscent of Blizzard's Warcraft art style, okay? More than reminiscent. It looks like someone took some B-list rejected tiles from Warcraft and stuck them in the game. I don't think they're ugly per se, but if you don't like the Warcraft art style, and I know a lot of people don't, you'll probably not like this one either. Likewise, the loot system seems more than a little inspired by the World of Warcraft, and talent trees have certain entries that may as well be ripped directly from the game. As above, this could be good or bad depending on how well you like Warcraft. I found that even the combats, although they were turn-based, started to feel a little bit like a MMO Warcraft style combat. The sound effects aren't bad, but the music can get real old real quick. I suggest if you play this game for long that you switch the music off before you enter the dungeon and just listen to some decent dungeon crawling tunes in the background instead. And if you play this game, you will be in the dungeon a long time. That's what it's designed for, but when I said it was grindy, I meant really, really grindy. Again, this is one of those things where if it's what you're looking for, you'll probably love it. If it's not, then it'll put you off real fast. The game is full of signs. It was meant to be a freemium mobile game. There's mobile interfaces for most of the screens, and there's two types of currency. The gold you get from fights and selling items, and then the rune things that I presume were the pay-for currency. Now you get those rune things from exploring the dungeon instead. The problem is that almost everything you might buy in town costs a ton, so if you're going to be upgrading much, you'll probably be grinding away for some time. And then there's the attitude some are saying the developer took on Steam towards criticism. No doubt you can look things up on Steam's forums for the details. I will not get into the back and forth beyond that, but I do think, just as a general kind of input right here, it's a damn shame when a dev can't handle critique. Hell, I love it when people voice criticisms of this channel, because it gives me something to consider when going forward. I may not take every one of their complaints into my equations, but I do listen to them, and sometimes I find some really interesting things to add to the channel. Hopefully, this is just a learning experience for this particular dev, and they'll be able to consider what shortcomings they may be alerted to by valid criticism in the future. So where does that leave this game? It's grindy, very reminiscent of a particular slate of MMOs while being single player, has all the earmarks of a mobile freemium game in a $14.99 price point package, and therein lies the main problem. I don't think it's a bad game overall. I certainly don't agree with people that were calling it complete trash, but I absolutely cannot recommend it at its current price point. There are way better dungeon crawlers out there for less, albeit not many with the randomized features this one has. There are a lot of similar or better roguelikes out there for a fraction of the price. But at the same time, a lot of the general criticisms not related to price point really boil down to whether you enjoy the source material from which this game is so heavily inspired. That is the problem with tying the look and feel of a game so tightly with an existing game. People who are inclined to dislike the source material won't be won over by a rehash of it, and people who like the source material might be disappointed when they go into this game and it's got a completely different structure. That having been said, this is one of those games, yet another of those games, where if you can catch it in a bundle or with a seriously deep discount on some sale, it might be worth taking a look at. Especially if you're someone like me who just really likes the whole grindy loot crawl thing to kill time on occasion. For now, I'm going to leave it at that. This has been the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday, Zavix Tower. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you have feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content. Until next time, take care and goodbye.